We're live now, I think, but we'll give it a moment. Oh yeah, and thank you for recording. I believe we're live. Yeah, we're live. All right. Well, let me get back here. Hi everyone. Wow. We have so much to cover, so much valuable information, not only for all the moms and dads out there that are have been fighting against the system to get their children back, but also the people as a whole worldwide, which are typically 99.5%, if you will, of the population, or at least the majority. Well, um, because of the extensive institutions and levels of governments that are involved with a lot of this criminal activity at taking the children worldwide. We'll say, let's say 98 or 99%, if you will, perhaps. So just a number. Um, so many things we have to speak about. One thing, I was very impressed by Bandy Lee, and she is a renowned psychologist and much more. And we just saw a beautiful testimony of her in the United States just the other day about family courts and related to child protection services. But it's not only limited to the US, as she mentions, it is a worldwide thing, and it's a worldwide pattern, and it's a worldwide business model, if you will, with the child services and the family court system and the legal system and how it actually works. So it is not a coincidence, meaning that in the USA and in Austria, you find the same premeditated, planned pattern when a child services wants to take the children. So this is incontestable. It's almost exact what Bandy Lee had given in her testimony, what she had witnessed in the U.S. is almost identical to the premeditated, the planned manipulation and demeaning of Nya to take the children. So, with that, we have established adequate, more than adequate intent. We have established criminality. We have applied the test of law to the whole thing, and it failed miserably. And the legal system of Austria failed miserably, did not even come up to what is law. And actually, without going extensively in there, the legal system of Austria is not law as at all. It would represent something more like a Wild West, a posé of ones just doing what they wish with no respect for individual rights and no respect, of course, for law, the principles of law, and the rule of law. So basically, for a law, for a legal system to be lawful, it has to meet four essential requirements. If it does not meet that, it is unlawful. And right at this time, I won't go into it further, but we will show it later here in the video, the criminality aspect of the legal system of Austria. But to keep it simple for everyone, uh, Sister Nya and us working together and others, if you will, have put out public liens. And I want to show ones why this was possible. We saw one question that said in a comment, oh, you need a court to get an injunction to approve a lien, if you will. And what I say, no. How, and I'm going to say this, how can anyone reasonably get a court order from a legal system that is corrupted? The court order would not be valid. It holds no lawful stature because the legal system itself is criminal. And when this occurs, there is that automatic shift of authority and lawful stature to the individual that is outside of that legal system. So, in the moment that one is rejected, fairness and law from a legal system, it ejects them out and above it. Then automatically and instantly, the people's law is activated. And then this, what it actually does, it gave Sister Nya universal jurisdiction to place the lien into the legal system, into the Republic of Austria, but also its insurance agents. Now, it's important to also understand that with any government or any country worldwide, all of their civil servants has to have a liability insurance. And this is a requirement and a fundamental of law to place liability upon, meaning that no one can act within the government systems and legal systems without liability insurance. But what occurs also, the insurance company is not, if you will, allowed to insure criminals because of various other laws. That means it would be supporting crime, allowing it to continue. And this is very significant because ones that are involved in Sister Nya's case are insured by these insurers that she also placed the lien against. Because again, there has to be accountability for any legal system to be law. And the venue for that in this case to have recompense for damages incurred, you get it from the insurance companies of, in this case, the Republic of Austria. So this is the accountability provision which needs to be accessed. Now, in this case, because of the severity, and the legal system has put Sister Nya into universal jurisdiction and law as a result of it failing the test of law, then what it has done is she also does not say to the insurance, harm has been done, pretty please give me something. It doesn't work that way. And in the past, the governments would do this and say, if, for example, we looked at one incident in Austria from a lady, I think her name was Eve, 30, 40 years ago, how she was violated. And I'm not sure if it's her, but it was someone else. They give them a measly 30,000 euros to buy them off, shut their mouth. But in this case, because Nya has universal authority and lawful jurisdiction, she says how much the harm is. And with this, in this case, at this time, and it will go higher the longer that the children are not delivered back into her immediate care for several reasons at this time. But just to get back in alignment with what I'm saying here, um, is that again, there's been two liens, one for 1.5 trillion against the insurance companies of Austria that insure the civil servants because the harm has already been done. And the onus, the lawful onus, is now on these insurance companies to find the ones that were acting criminal. And of course, there's many, so the proper procedure would be for them to contact Nya as part of their investigation to identify the perpetrators because again, you cannot have criminals that are insured within Austria. They are causing harm to the public, just to keep it simple. So there is the $1.5 trillion lien for the already psychological stress and what is looking like, at least what we have documented, some physical harm that has occurred to Aurora, which her daughter, which we don't know exactly what happened yet, and it's nothing life-threatening, but it was a very considerable, what looked like a cut and a huge bruise on her leg. Um, which as we go forward, there'll be more um, information about that, if it was actually intentional, done by someone else, or if it was a genuine accident. However, it doesn't matter how it occurred. The reason of law is that it occurred while the children were not in Ya's immediate care. So if this physical harm causes some complication for whatever reason in the future, it could also become very much more serious. And I won't go further into that right now. Nevertheless, the psychological stress, the psychological clinical testing upon the children, the conditioning, the psychological programming. For example, when Sister Nya would call the children in the Child Crisis Center, the call would be supervised, and Sister Nya told, no, you can't speak about that to the children. So the controlled conversation is also evidence of a programming of the children and controlling the conversation, just to keep that simple. But also the psychological stress that everyone knows of separating children from their moms or their parents when everything was perfectly okay. There was no failure by Nya's duty of care to the children. And duty of care is, with for children, it's the responsibility and the well-being. And for any parent-child relationship. So no state owns a child, and they cannot. And also, it's accepted worldwide that even the parents maybe don't own the child, but there is the ownership of the duty of care. And that duty of care by the mother is caring for the child, which Nya has done amazingly. The evaluation of the children are above normal, which showed no stress upon the children while in Sister Nya's care. Uh, and for Sister Nya to provide protection for her children. She did. Her children were in amazing shape, no stress in the relationship. She provided that. And the well being for the children. The children are healthy and safe. So none of this, her duty of care, none of it was breached. And it was all again premeditated and manipulated as Nya as a target. which you'll see more of it as we're going tonight. Read uh, Sister Nya had got an expert psychological evaluator to evaluate the psychological evaluator that the court was using as evidence. And you're going to find this very amazing and very interesting, but very conspicuous and incontestable evidence in itself that shows more of the criminal intent that we already have established. Um, so the children were perfectly secure with Nya, and what occurred is that really child services could not get anything on Nya, so they had to create a story. They fabricated a story with lies, manipulation, deceit, and in my opinion, it also looks like the father, or what is presumed as the father, is also involved or complicit to some degree with the circumstances that we are seeing as you put things together. So it's not looking like just a custody battle. They tried to make it look like it. And when I say they, child services and the court, because again, it was premeditated when you put all of the evidence together, and you can clearly see it. And this is very important, what I'm going to say, because what I just said, this evidence, it's incontestable evidence. But here is the interesting thing. For the most part, this, if not all of it, this incontestable evidence was shared with many different levels of government, showing how unlawful this was. And there was no intervention by these levels of government. And with law, there is no ignorance of the law when it becomes very obvious the laws that were being broken and the constitutional rights and the human rights of the individual. So there is no excuse by these other levels of government. They were informed in Austria. So because they did not intervene to stop this and put the children back in Ya's custody, they become incriminated and become accomplices as well. And because of this, because all of the legal system of Austria is complicit, again, it substantiates the lawful placing of liens from outside of that legal system. And these liens did not require a court to approve them. That is not how law works. If you have a criminal, you don't ask the criminal to approve something. That is absolutely ridiculous and preposterous, and it's not lawful. So it's foolish for any to ever think that. And as we go forward, more we'll know about this. Um, I've been rambling on. I believe, sister, we should begin to get into this. I got some notes here, and really, I didn't just put a one, two, three. Uh, right at this time, I believe before we get into the lean, let's look at this expert evaluation of the evaluation that the court used. And before we begin with that, what I wish to say is this is an independent psychological evaluator that Sister Nya found. I have had no contact with this evaluator. I don't even know this evaluator. I do know the name. We won't mention it here, uh, at least for now, to respect his identity, but I won't mention it. But what I will say is that uh, I am absolutely impressed. Both of us and more are impressed by his expert, objective evaluation. And also, he has included everything that I have mentioned before to Nya, but he did not know. So what you have is actually two experts. And yes, I do classify myself as an expert. So you have I, and you had this other expert that both does not know each other. And we have both got the same diagnosis, if you will, of the criminal aspect of this. So, uh, without I rambling on much more, as I said quite a bit, Sister Nya, do you feel to begin to read this expert, objective, psychological evaluator's uh, opinion of the court evaluation where the judge decided on to take the children from you and say, no, yeah, you cannot have any custody. Here is the court decision based on this evaluation. So we need to hear that. So, do you wish to begin?
Yes, it is a method critical statement on the family psychology report that was submitted by the psychological evaluator, Tamara. So he started in the undersigned, the present expert opinion by Dr. Tamara, dated 15 March 2025, has fundamental methodological, conceptual, and ethical references that is
Just hold on for
validity
one
in
moment,
court.
sister. Just hold on for one moment. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I think we just got to go back because I'm not sure if it was my Wi-Fi or your Wi-Fi, but you were broken up and we couldn't get that clear. So if you may, just go back and just begin that last, I think, two or three sentences when you began to speak about
So
Tamara, and Tamara is the name of the psychological evaluation that is being used in the court protocol to make the decision. So Tamara is supposed to be an expert psychologist that the court, the judge, is basing her decision on. So that is Tamara. And what you are going to see is the other anonymous expert is going to come in and evaluate Tamara's evaluation that the court used. So may we begin again, please? Thank you.
yes, created a method critical statement by Mara. And in his opinion, the present expert opinion by Dr. Tamara on the 15th of March 2025 has fundamental methodological, conceptual, and ethical deficiencies that call into the question its scientific validity and usability in court. Did you hear everything clear?
I heard most of that. So what he is saying is there's many deficiencies which actually invalidate the whole psychological evaluation. So we had heard that enough, I believe. It worked pretty good. So do you
Great.
wish to? That's his opening statement. And so continue, please.
So the most serious deficits are, and then he starts to name them. The first is diagnosis without examination, so remote diagnosis. So the expert witness gives the child's mother serious mental diagnosis, such as a delusional disorder or a paranoid personality structure, without ever having conducted a direct examination, exploration, or testing. This approach violates fundamental ethical and scientific principles of psychological diagnosis and is unacceptable in terms of professional ethics.
Well, yes, and importantly, right there. So what it's saying is that the Tamara, the psychologist, she even broke her code of ethics, her oath, and in a professional, expert medical community, you do not do this. No one does that. They have the code of ethics and guidelines of how you are a professional. And I don't know how many years Miss Tamara has been working as a psychologist, but to be validated and accredited and used in a court, there is a certain degree of professionalism that needs to be there. And for any judicial system to be lawful in this capacity, it means that that psychological evaluator at some point had to be vetted before her evaluation could even be considered in court. So, what we are seeing is with this, where the evaluator has violated her oath of office, her code of ethics, but also the moral standards, what it shows is intent. There is no excuse again for the law. So it shows intent and her desperation when you compare also two psychological evaluations that she did without Sister Nya being evaluated in the in the decision of the second evaluation, and there are some laws broken in respect to that. Go ahead, sister.
The second point is use of an unscientific concept. The expert opinion bases its argumentation largely on the so-called pass syndrome, according to Gardner. This concept is not recognized in the international classification systems.
That is, may I interrupt? That is the parental alienation syndrome. And just, I believe, he explains it further as we go
Yeah.
down. So the acronym for parental alienation syndrome is PAS, but this is considered as a pseudoscience in the psychological world and is not to be used as a diagnosis as well. But Sister Nya will continue with this. But this is very important for any of you moms and dads that the moment a child services, which they have done in Austria, does this, there is no credibility whatsoever. And then it begins to indicate that there is actual an ulterior motive with a nefarious intent to get the child. Because again, there should not be any excuse by the psychological evaluator to know this very important aspect of psychology in relation to alienation. I'll take this one step further. What we are seeing in this case is alienation, but it's by the court in the psychological evaluator and more against Nya. It's an intentional alienation. And when you see this again with substantiating proof, then it's also shows it's planned and it's premeditated. But it also shows the desperation with whatever part the psychological evaluator and the judge plays in this, it shows they are so desperate to get these children that they will break whatever law they need to and whatever code of ethics and even their oaths. So continue, sister, before I ramble.
Yes, maybe it's good, to get few of it done because it's several pages long, and to get more in detail, afterwards, because he's also going into detail with it as well. So, and also, to share with others, because I have enough text and link, also for them to use it, because I have used it before in the last submission.
I
So,
agree fully. Thank you.
so just to finish this sentence, so I restart this sentence. This concept is not recognized in the international classification systems, DSM and ICD, and is classified as unscientific or pseudoscientific by leading professional associations. Its use reveals an outdated level of knowledge and an ideologically biased approach. So the third point is systematic bias and lack of neutrality. In the opinion of the undersigned, the report uncritically and almost verbatim, excuse me my pronunciation, adopts the account of the child's father as the basis of the facts, frame story. Exculpatory or contradictory information is ignored or not integrated into analysis. This manifests a consistent confirmation bias which contradicts the requirement of impartiality. So, and the fourth thing is internal contradictions and ignored findings. In the opinion of the undersigned, the experts' conclusions are in direct contradiction to their own data. In particular, the positive kindergarten report for Akua and the high scores of the daughter Aurora in the area of cooperation skills in the psychological tests are not acknowledged or resolved in the final risk analysis. In summary, in the opinion of the undersigned, the expert is not a neutral, scientifically sound decision-making aid for the court, but a biased document characterized by serious flaws in methodology and conception. Its recommendations are therefore unreliable and potentially harmful to the child's welfare. Do you want to add? No? Okay.
Just a little bit, that last sentence.
Yes.
Yeah, it's because this goes into the endangerment by the child welfare, the psychologist, and the court as well. So where he's saying this is harmful, well, exactly it is, because we are uncovering more of a desperate intent with a plan that was crafted to take these children. And again, when you see such a desperation to separate children from its mom, where all laws and things are broken, it is obvious, it's conspicuous that the children are entering the endangered area. So what the child care services tried to do was to make it look like Nya was the danger through manipulation and lies, but it's actually the opposite. And this is what they're trying to do, to alienate Nya as a danger when really they are the real danger. Yeah, continue, please.
I also have to add that 4 points, we discussed it a lot before, but that 4 points really reflects, the whole court process. and everything that have happened, to put it out bluntly. So then he goes in more detailed way. So part one analysis of fundamental and formal shortcomings.
Just stop
So
for one moment, please. I got to pick something up and show everyone. Uh, yeah, can you see him, Sister? Yeah,
oh yes.
yeah, the great horned beetle. He is he is a portent sign from Christ, if you will. So his timely arrival, and I put out a post about this, a week or several days ago. So I got to pick up this little buddy here. All right. Very good divine sign. Carry forward, please.
So the first point 1.1, procedural and formal irregularities, the problem of dating and diligence. A first formal warning signal is the discrepancy between the date of the expert's report, March the 15th, 2025, and the date of electronic submission to the court, March the 19th, 2025. Although this could be a simple typing error, such a mistake in a forensic document where the utmost care is expected raises initial doubts about the conscientiousness of the experts. Compliance with the former criteria is a fundamental aspect of expert opinion quality. Insufficient operationalization of the court's mandate. The court order is to examine the mother's ability to raise the child and to clarify whether a transfer of custody to the father is the best interests of the child. The expert translates this order into a series of psychological questions. However, in the opinion of the undersigned, the operationalization is already inadequate and biased in its structure. The first psychological question is, does the mother exhibit psychological or emotional stress that could impair her parenting skills? This formulation directs the investigation towards pathologizing the mother from the outset. A neutral hypothesis-driven approach would require a symmetrical questionnaire that focuses equally on the resources and deficits of both parents. In the opinion of the undersigned, the questionnaires focus almost exclusively on possible deficiencies of the mother. Does the mother, for example, does the mother have, is the mother capable of, while the father is only marginally considered as a potential alternative, but not as a subject of the procedure to be examined in the same way. This asymmetrical framing violates the principle of impartiality and objectivity, which is the top priority for court-appointed experts. Instead of creating an open and balanced diagnostic process, an investigative framework is created that pushes the mother into the role of the problem source to be examined from the outset. This lays the foundation for a confirmation that runs through the entire court. Point 1.2, deficiencies, I'm sorry for my pronunciation, in a factual basis, file situation. Uncritical adoption of the father's account. In the opinion of the undersigned, the chapter framework events is not a neutral summary of the contents of the file. but a largely unfiltered reproduction of the father's application for the transfer of sole custody. Although the expert claims to have summarized the relevant parts of the file, this selection appears to be extremely one-sided. The father's allegations are reproduced in detail over more than 15 pages.
Now, right at this point, may I just add? So, what you're seeing coming up is the word bias more than once because it's so obvious. And again, when you see bias like this, there is no excuse by a judge, if you will, which is supposed to be impartial, which is the opposite of biased, doing what she's doing again. And also, there is no excuse by the judge for not seeing this and recognizing it. It's that obvious, is what we need to say. So, again, because it's so obvious, and the judge using this fabrication tool, it incriminates the judge as well as part of this crime. Uh, so without oh, and one other thing, what we will be doing is publicly putting a copy of this evaluation of the evaluation out public, but we will block out the name of the author. But we can say, as you're seeing, this expert opinion from this objective one is absolutely amazing. It's bang on, but it's also showing the level of professionalism that should have been shared by a psychological evaluator, by a judge, by the child care services as well. Right at this point, the child care services is actually very complicit with many members in this case with the judge and the psychological evaluator. And as you go down the road, if you will, you can see much more with it. And in my opinion, with everything we're seeing, it's also looking like there was some collusion with the father, some collusion or compromise that is also made with the ones so that the children are taken from Nya's custody. But I'm going to take it a little bit further with what I think, and I'm totally allowed my opinion. So the child services, if you will, what they have just recently did is give full custody to the father. But what you're seeing as we're reading, it's ridiculous that there was no substantiation to do it. But what we're seeing is there must have been some collusion and compromising with the father, with them. But what's going to occur as part of the desperation is they're going to try to frame the father because their underlying intent was to get the children. So once they thought they had Nya, the mom, out of the way, had this court thing and all of this, and thinking that the mom was just a regular mom that did not know law, did not have the company of God and so much other expertise, if you will. They didn't know what they were battling with or what they were trying to deceive. So now, where the realization comes in of what they're actually up against with Sister Nya, out of their desperation, they quickly disheveled the children to the full custody of the father as well, which was their premeditated, pre planned intent all along. Once Nya was out of the way, then give them to the dad because actually the father is the highest risk and it's easier for the child care services to get things on the dad, especially if they were even before the case, genuinely go into the background and investigation and much more things. And also, if they would have um, allowed due process in the beginning of the court proceedings, if you will, or at a certain state, if they would have allowed her testimony, it would have taken away any credibility for the father, if you will, to even be considered in custody. So this manipulated, uh, thought out plan by the child services and all involved. And yes, they're all connected, schools, hospitals, right up into the levels of governments. As you will see, as we go forward with more information, not just from us, from other experts that have been investigating child care services worldwide, and levels of governments know all of the tactics and all of the evidence. So please continue.
Oh, I also have to add something. So the expert who wrote this has, I think, around 15 years or something expertise in this area. So he's very an expert and saw a lot of cases. I have to add this. And also that I didn't share much information with him. So everything he did was based on this evaluation. I also have to add that at the beginning, on my first court appointment on the 1st of April, I mentioned those parts already in court, saying it is bias, it's one-sided. And the thing is, the judge rejected it because it's not objective enough and not reasonable. So I just want to repeat that because, yeah,
However, yeah. So you didn't need to go back to court, but you did go a couple months ago
yeah,
to also to put your evidence in there, but also to collect more evidence with the court setting at what would transpire. So in that court setting, it turned in 7, 8 hours. The judge actually allowed Nya to give more of her testimony, which Nya wasn't allowed before. But what occurred is the judge took away the bias of due process, but in her decision, she didn't listen to any of Nya's testimony. And also, Nya had 9 or 10, perhaps 11 character witnesses with testimony, while the ex in that court proceeding had none, to my knowledge, or maybe one. So, even the judge, if you will, she was that biased that she would not, look at this. Anyone could say, if you had 10 witnesses, let's say if a crime occurred, let's say if a fight broke out on a street, to keep this simple, and let's say someone hit you first, so you hit them back, you had to defend yourself. But let's say there were 10 witnesses there that said that they saw that other person hit you. And if it went to court and the other person that hit you first, let's say they only got one witness, reasonably, who is the court going to believe? And you yourself, anyone, when you look at this, you say this person got 10 witnesses that said they did not do it, the crime, if you will, and you got this one saying one witness that is obviously lying. I mean, again, it doesn't make sense at all, but it does make sense when you show that there's the actual intent by the judge to take the children from Nya and all that are connected child services, all in collusion with it.
I mean,
Go
from
ahead.
my opinion, and also I have witnessed there, I had a witness there. Um, I was questioned 6 or 7 hours, but the thing is, it doesn't appear in the protocol, in the court protocol.
Oh,
A lot of
oh,
information is missing.
obstruction of justice by the judge.
Then, the whole thing that you can read in this evaluation, it's the same pattern that runs through the court and the family court. I'm saying that there was also a tampering with the evidence. And
Yes.
also, because I have asked great question, which would show that the ex is lying. But what she did was she jumped into and blocked it, which is also a tampering of evidence.
And
Very important.
another obstruction of justice and
Yes.
very incriminating on the judge and very obvious because also you had a witness there, even though the judge omitted all of this out of the court protocol, the transcript. So it, uh, everyone, it's absolutely so conspicuously, obviously corrupt and illegal with this, and it's absolutely insane that the levels of government that all were contacted in Austria and knew about this did not stop it. And again, it shows that, in my full opinion, they're all colluding in this. But when we look at, the reason why, just 2 children, yes, the children are special, but why destroy an entire legal system of Austria just to try to get 2 children? And this is where you look at what would the reason be. But if you looked at this ongoing illegal pattern with many children, then you began to put the picture together that they take many children. Then when you look at the money involved, and then when you perhaps add in thousands of children vanishing in Austria, most of them, they said, were refugee children coming in, but with no record of leaving Austria, and no statistics by the government, no supporting statistics to my knowledge yet, we're uncovered, or we have uncovered something very, very serious. Now, I'm going to mention, Sister Nya reminded me yesterday, and I'll just mention it simply. In the top levels of government in Austria, there used to be a cardinal representation from the Vatican. And I believe back in January or somewhat, uh, that cardinal left. So that was a representation for the Catholic Church. And what was put into place is just something that is called an administrator. Uh, and let me just at this point, I don't want to go further into it speculating, but we enter that fact as well into the equation, whereas more information surrounding this and perhaps a connectivity may come into play in the future as well. And what I need to say, there are different other groups and individuals that also are carrying out their own investigations, compiling evidence, information. So without speculating, I divinely had to mention that. But go forward, sister. Thank you.
Yes. Just give me a second. So, mixing of allegation and fact. In the opinion of the undersigned, the expert fails to clearly identify the father's allegation as such. Serious allegations, such as the mother's allegate untreated schizophrenia diagnosis, the showing of slaughterhouse videos, or systematic manipulation of the children, are presented as part of the frame story, without contextualizing them as a partisan allegations or referring to attempts at independent verification. In the opinion of the undersigned, this constitutes a serious methodological error. An expert witness must not treat disputed party submissions as objective fact, but must understand them as hypotheses to be tested. This approach elevates the father's perspective to the factual truth of the case before the actual expert investigation has even begun. Selective presentation of information. Information that could call the father's narrative into question is mentioned but not pursued further in the analysis. A striking example is the incident in which the father blocked the mother's car with his own vehicle, which was observed by an employee of the youth welfare office. This is aggressive and, in a conflict situation, highly escalating behavior of the father is not analyzed in the report with regard to his own parenting skills. Impulse control or conflict behavior, it remains an isolated note in the file instead of being included in a psychological assessment of the father. This indicates, in the opinion of the undersigned, a selective perception aimed at maintaining the negative image of the mother and the positive image of the father. So the expert's statement that he had conducted an interview. Oh, I'm sorry, I just left out something. The expert opinion, therefore, does not act as an independent analytical tool for the court, but rather as an amplifier of the father's accusations. In the opinion of the undersigned, the expert fails in her fundamental task of acting as a neutral authority and providing the court with an objectified and critically examined factual basis. The expert's statement that he had conducted an interview with the class teacher of Aurora without recording or summarizing the content of this interview, in the expert opinion, constitutes a serious methodological deficiency. I'm sorry.
Deficiency.
Deficiency.
Yeah.
All right. Excuse me. Thank you. This approach violates central quality requirements that must be met by an expert report. Above all, the principles of comprehensibility, transparency, and the guarantee of the right to be heard. An expert report must disclose its sources of knowledge and clearly separate the information obtained from them, the findings, from the inferential assessments, the actual expert report. By only mentioning the interview but withholding its content, the expert creates a non-transparent void. It is impossible for the court and the parties to the proceedings to understand what information the teacher provided and what weight this information had in the expert's judgment. Furthermore, this inevitably creates the impression of a selective choice of content due to the detriment of objectivity.
Detriment
of objectivity. Since the expert has sole control over which information from the interview she considers relevant and which not, there is a reasonable suspicion that only those aspects that support her hypothesis may have been included in her assessment, while contradictory or exculpatory information was not mentioned. This approach also violates the parties' right to be heard. The parties are entitled to comment on all facts relevant to the decision. As the content of the conversation is unknown, they are deprived of the opportunity to contextualize, dispute, or correct the teacher's statements. Such a procedure contradicts the expert's duty of care to document their findings completely and transparently and undermines the fairness of the procedure as well as the reliability and objectivity of the expert opinion. So the part 2, critical assessment of methodological shortcomings.
Just one moment before you go forward with that. So just add in there, yeah, any methodical professional way is to keep recordings and proper documentation. So what the objective psychological evaluator is saying, none of that protocol was followed. And this is important where none of it was followed. What the psychological evaluator says is only hearsay, and it falls into conjecture, which cannot be used in a disposition or even in court. In Austria, there is the rule of conjecture or the conjectural rule. And having said this, any judge that was a professional judge would identify this or should have immediately. And again, what we're showing here is that there is no excuse of ignorance because all of these involved are supposed to be competent in their work. What we are seeing is the total opposite: incompetency, but we're seeing it's deliberate. And then we are seeing the intent once again, which proves the crime, proves part of the crime. But with this, to prove a crime, there is usually three states: the criminal act, the harm in the end, and identifying the intent. And with this, it is all proven, um, let's say, to what I say an incontestable degree with this in Ya's case. And so again, their ignorance is not the explanation. The deliberate intent, which is the motive of the case, is the explanation. They are doing it again deliberately. The judge, the child care services, the uh, the psychological evaluator, and more, all that's involved. Yeah, go ahead, sister, please.
Part 2, critical assessment of methodological shortcomings. 2.1, scientific nature of the assessment with direct examination, remote diagnosis. In the opinion of the undersigned, the most serious methodological flaw of the expert opinion is the submission of serious psychodiagnostic judgments about the child's mother without ever having personally explored, observed, or tested her. Violation of fundamental and professional ethics. The expert concludes that there is a well-founded suspicion of serious mental
Abnormal, allow it. Yeah,
I don't use the
abnormalities,
word.
abnormalities. Yes,
Yes, I
continue.
normally don't use that word.
Yeah, I'm familiar with them because they're English. You're a lot of, yes, you're speak German most of the time. You're doing well. Continue, please.
Or personality disorders in a child's mother, and brings a delusional disorder or a strongly pronounced paranoid personality structure into play as a differential diagnosis. Such a remote diagnosis is incompatible with the ethical guidelines of the psychological professions. Both the German and Austrian professional codes of conduct require the personal and direct exercise of the profession and prohibit diagnosis about persons who have not been examined.
Whoa, that is, yeah, right there. So that's so important. This is a very huge violation of the code of ethics. So, uh, very good. Continue.
Yes. So the Austrian Psychologists Act explicitly stipulates in paragraph 13, making a diagnosis without direct contact is scientifically unfounded and constitutes gross misconduct in terms of professional ethics.
Well,
Misinterpret
right there.
Yes.
So it's prohibited, so for the psychological evaluator to do this, but also what we're beginning to put in here and show is the gross negligence. Now, in let's say US and Canadian law, but in liability law, which we began to go into the insurances, what we mentioned, when you have gross negligence causing harm, when you have that by anyone, it is a serious criminal act. But when you have it by, let's say, an expert or a professional in this field, it becomes much more serious. And it also jeopardizes, uh, as a whole, the trust in the legal system of Austria as well. And this then is very important because every citizen of Austria needs to know at this point, but also prior, that if every citizen continues to support the legal system of Austria to this extent and allows this gross misconduct and negligence to go un to go unjustified, then all of the people of Austria as well become accomplices to this huge crime. Because again, what we said earlier in the show, if a government or a legal system becomes corrupt, the responsibility to apply remedy then is automatically shifted to the people, because the people actually, in a voting nation, votes these ones in to take care of a legal system. But if a legal system is not just and not lawful, as we're seeing, the responsibility and the moral obligation falls upon all of the people of Austria to do the right thing, just to keep it simple. As we give more of true law in the future, ones will begin to understand this even more. And because there will be more of the absolute law and true law mentioned. But go ahead, sister.
Misinterpretation of non-cooperation. The expert interprets the mother's refusal to participate in the assessment as confirmation of her pathological condition. In the opinion of the undersigned, this is inadmissible. Participation in an assessment is voluntary, and the refusal must not be interpreted as an admission of guilt or evidence of a disorder. A correct approach would have been to document the efforts to make contact and to present the non-participation as a significant limitation of the databases. Any conclusions regarding the mother should have been labeled as highly speculative and to be interpreted with extreme caution. Instead, the non-cooperation is used as further evidence against the mother, which, in the opinion of the undersigned, underscores the bias of the expert.
Oh, right at this point, and when this occurred, when Sister Nya lost all trust in the legal system, and this occurred mostly, it began in May 2023 when her due process was denied, and also where she did not consent in court to sitting times. The court actually said she did, is my understanding, which also was not correct. So the court had lied at that point, way back in 2023. And the reason I need to bring this up, because that's when it began to be obvious to Sister Nya that something was not right. And it was at that time when she began ignoring things with, let's say, from the court or from sitting times at least. But also at this point, had the court being just back in 2023, and there was a different judge, I believe, presiding then, had the court being just, it would have recognized a constitutional provision once it was said that due process was denied, which is a constitutional right, but also more importantly, it was not, to my knowledge, said then. What more importantly, Nya did not give her consent at that court hearing in 2023. And because of that, and a few other discrepancies, the proper action, what was prescribed within the constitutional procedure, was that court should have been halted until this violation of human rights was investigated by the constitutional court and a mediation of some sort um, had begun, a mediation process. But the important thing is that, again, time after time, let's say even when the children were taken in March this year, as soon as Sister Nya put in cease and desist orders to all of the levels of government, the child care, saying it's unlawful to stop this immediately, there also should not have been any court proceedings because, again, it's provisioned within what is supposed to be the constitutional laws of Austria, that if there's anything, let's say, this serious, no legal proceedings can continue. It must stop, if you will. So that may not be explained right easily in the way that I pervade it, but there are those important provisions contained. Uh, the point I'm making, not only within the legal system, but within the Constitution as well. And very quickly with this, everyone needs to understand that if there is violations of constitutional rights, when it goes to the constitutional court, whatever their decision is, it relies on the legal system to enforce it. Well, right there, if the legal system is corrupt and criminal, then it will not enforce the constitutional decision. And what this means then, there is actually no law, and that the legal system is also invalid as it sits. And this is also more of the reasoning with why there is no there was no remediation or no mediation process or any just adjudication process that could be entertained in Austria, because what you were finding is all of the usual venues of justice had shut their doors on Nya. And this also made them further complicit, but it was beautiful because then it puts Sister Nya into the universal jurisdiction in the least. But continue, please.
Yes, I have to say at that point, 2023, when everything starts with this, I already knew that a lot of things are pre-orchestrated, meaning like when you go into court, there's no decision made. It is already made before you went into the court. And also my suspicion that everyone was conspiring against me. And as you can see now, you can see that clearly. But also, afterwards, I followed the visiting times for a while until, the children reached a specific point where it was not safe and protected anymore, and they didn't want to know. So what I then did, I started to investigate, try to get help from different kind of organizations and, places, and gather more information about the law and everything. So it's not about that I don't went there, but when they, again, after the time, try to get me into court or send me letters or that evaluator writes me, I didn't. Because the thing is, when they are already corrupt or when they are not truthful, it doesn't make sense to go with them. Because as you can see now with the court, the more you go, the more they fabricate more stories about you.
Yeah, there is not justice. There is not
No.
law in Austria, not true law. It is a corrupt, the legal system. Yeah. But continue then if you wish, whatever. Yes.
Yes. So in invalid diagnostic process in Austria,
Invalid.
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 I know.
Or invalid. Yeah.
Yes, it's getting
Invalid.
hot
Yeah.
now. I'm sorry. Ah, so, invalid diagnostic process. In Austria, making a clinical psychological diagnosis requires a clearly defined process, which usually includes a medical or psychotherapeutic referral with a suspected diagnosis, a medical history, behavioral observation, and the use of standardized testing procedures. The expert bypasses this entire process and arrives at a serious psychiatric suspected diagnosis solely on the basis of false and third-party reports, which in turn are largely based on the father's allegations. This diagnostic short circuit is scientifically untenable and, in the opinion of the undersigned, constitutes an abuse of experts' authority. The diagnosis here serves not for clinical clarification, but as a rhetorical device to legitimize the recommendation to withdraw custody. So 2.2, improper use.
Abuse of power. Yes. Very serious crime the judge committed there. Go ahead.
2.2, improper use and interpretation of psychometric testing. GTCI 7-11. The application of the Junior Temperament and Character Inventory to the 8-year-old daughter Aurora is, in the opinion of the undersigned, a further example of the methodological weakness of the report, ignoring contradictory results. The most conspicuous omission is the selective interpretation of the test results. Aurora achieved a T-score of 66 on the cooperativeness KO scale, which corresponds to the 95th percentile. This indicates a child who is described as exceptionally tolerant, fair, considerate, and kind. In the opinion of the undersigned, this result is diametrically opposed to the expert's narrative that Aurora is a severely alienated child who is instrumentalized as a tool for the mother's hate campaign. Such a cooperative and social personality profile is hardly compatible with the image of a hate-filled, manipulated child. A scientifically honest expert should have addressed and resolved this contradiction. Completely ignoring the central finding devalues the entire test diagnosis and raises the suspicion of cherry-picking to support a preconceived opinion.
But also what you see in here is what can be also called a hate crime. Again, they targeted you, and this is part of it. So I need to include, because I know there is hatred for whatever reason towards you. It could be racial or what have you, but there is an obvious hatred, which is a bias as well. And when you have someone that is biased, you get all of these attributes and the character attributes which shows it. But again, it's just, this is so absurd. It's just like I'd like to say like a bunch of reptilians just come in here and include it all together or something, because it's whether reptilians to the audience are fantasy or not, it doesn't matter. You see such savagery and such hate and attacking and attempting to demean uh, Nya at all cost, even jeopardizing any ounce of integrity that the legal system had, or even professionalism in the psychological and child care and family court system. But even more, their intent, they are so desperate in their attempt to destroy that they have made so many fabrications, they have violated so many rights, they have broken so many laws that they have intensively compromise the entire judicial system. But again, how many different ways could we say this? Or just simply say it's very criminal. Continue, please.
Lack of alternative hypothesis. Aurora achieves a very low score in the area of curiosity behavior. So NVT score 31, third percentile. The expert interprets this as a difficult to activate, deliberate, cumbersome, modest, and orderly. In the opinion of the undersigned, she fails to examine alternative hypotheses that are obvious in the context of the case. Such a low level of curiosity can also be an expression of fear, emotional suppression, or an extremely cautious attitude due to the massive conflict of loyalties. In the opinion of the undersigned, testing is therefore not used as an explorative tool for hypothesis formation, but merely as a decorative element, whose results are interpreted in such a way that they do not disrupt the existing narrative. 2.3. Biased interpretation of children's statements and observation, devaluation of the child's will. Both 8-year-old Aurora and 5-year-old Akua expressed the wish not to see their father. The expert attributes this directly and exclusively to manipulation by the mother, without any detailed examination. According to German and Austrian case law and specialist literature, however, the will of the child is a central criterion of the child's welfare and must be determined and assessed in an age-appropriate manner. A professional analysis should have examined the stability, intensity, goal orientation, and autonomy of the expressed will. In the opinion of the undersigned, there is no serious consideration of alternative reasons for the rejection, such as a genuine conflict of loyalty in which the children are trying to protect the main caring mother, or actual negative experiences with the father. The child will is not dismissed as an expression of the child's subjectivity, but from the outset as a pathological symptom of maternal influence. Pathologization of children's fantasy. So the children's esoteric stories, seeing angels coming from another dimension, soul travel, are assessed by the expert as an unrealistic worldview and a significant risk factor, considerable risk factor, which could even indicate a suicidal risk, extended suicide. This interpretation is extreme and alarmist. the opinion of the undersigned, the expert fails to consider the statements in the context of developmental psychology, in which the boundaries between fantasy and reality can still be blurred. It is not explored whether these are games, stories, fairy tales, or firmly anchored beliefs that cause suffering. The leap from childhood fantasy to potentially life-threatening danger is speculative, not supported by validated risk instruments, and represents an irresponsible dramatization. Ignoring
Right there.
positive, yes.
Just finish that, and then I'll say something.
So ignoring positive reports from others. The kindergarten report on Akua paints a picture of a
Whoa, no. All right. So this is another one. What I wish to look at is Sister Nya and her children were ridiculed for believing, let's say, in God and angels. And let's say most of the world, around 77%, believes in God and these things. And, again, to alienate Nya in such a way because of her beliefs, it's totally not acceptable, and it never should have been in there in a professional. But it's all of this is not professional, but it's also another violation of her constitutional rights and the children's rights, a severe violation that is also a hate crime, if you will, in Austria, but most of the world with this. So again, to deliberately and intentionally put aspects of a hate crime in there to decharacterize and demean Nya again, it's absolutely insane. It's psychopathic behavior. But what is worse is that it's being done intentionally. So intentional psychopaths manipulating, fabricating stories, making up lies, manipulating and twisting things that yeah, I'll stop again. Continue, please. Thank you.
ignoring positive reports from others. The kindergarten report on Akua paints a picture of a socially well-integrated, cheerful, and competent child. He is described as an open-minded, talkative, sociable boy who has friends and shows no deficits. This positive finding from a neutral, everyday observation situation stands in a stark contrast to the conclusion of the experts that the children are exposed to an acute and massive risk to their welfare. Instead of resolving this contradiction, the kindergarten report is reproduced but effectively ignored in the final assessment. So part 3, analysis of conceptual and interpretative errors. 3.1, the uncritical and unscientific use of parental alienation syndrome, PAS. A central conceptual flaw that undermines the scientific basis of the entire report is the explicit reference to the PAS syndrome, according to Gardner. Use of a discredited concept. Parental alienation syndrome is not a recognized mental disorder. It is neither in the DSM-5, Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, nor in the ECD-11, International Classification of Diseases. Leading professional organizations such as the American Psychological Association, APA, and the American Medical Association, AMA, have refused to recognize it due to a lack of empirical evidence. In the professional community, PAS is widely regarded as junk science, or a pseudoscientific construct whose use in legal proceedings is highly controversial. The use of this term by an expert witness is, in the opinion of the undersigned, a clear indication of a lack of scientific currency and rigor, outdated knowledge and ideological bias. The reference to Gardner 1998 shows, in the opinion of the undersigned, that the expert draws an outdated and ideologically charged literature rather than current evidence-based models of parent-child contact problems. So 1998. I just want to add that.
This is from Richard Gardner, I believe. Yes,
But
and
but
it's
but the
go
thing,
ahead.
there's a new version, I think something around 2021 or 4 or something, where he removed the past.
Yes, that's what I was just going to say. Thank you. He had to reconcile it. Exactly. Yes, go ahead. Thank you.
The past concept is historically closely linked to certain fathers' rights movements and often serves to discredit legitimate concerns of protection needs of the caring parent and the child by devaluing them across the board as manipulative programming. By choosing this concept, the expert leaves the ground of a neutral systemic analysis and adopts a simplistic perpetrator-victim scheme that fails to recognize the complexity of family dynamics in the opinion of the undersigned. Outdated specialist literature and lack of references. The use of predominantly outdated specialized literature and outdated concepts in a psychological expert report represents a considerable lack of quality and violates the fundamental requirements of due diligence and scientific foundation as laid down in the guidelines for experts applicable in Austria. Such an approach undermines the validity and reliability of the expert conclusions, and even more serious deficiency, which calls into question the scientific nature of the entire report, is the complete lack of bibliography. According to the guidelines of the preparation of clinical, psychological, and health psychological findings and expert opinions of the Federal Ministry of Social Affairs, Health Care, and Consumer Protection, BMSG PK, that's from Austria. An expert opinion must be conclusive and comprehensible. The lack of a bibliography fundamentally violates this principle of comprehensibility, transparency. Without the disclosure of the sources used, it is impossible for the court, the parties to the proceedings, or other experts to verify the scientific basis of the expert thesis, interpretations, and conclusions. The expert opinions becomes an unverifiable black box that requires pure trust in the authority of the expert instead of being based on transparent scientific reasoning. An expert opinion without a list of sources evades any scientific review. The obligation to be scientific requires that the claims made are substantiated by recognized theories, empirical studies, or standardized test procedures. If this evidence is not provided, the expert opinion is degraded to a mere string of private opinions and personal convictions of the expert. It is no longer clear whether the expert opinion is based on the current state of research or on decades-old, possibly refuted concepts. It becomes impossible to distinguish between well-founded analysis and subjective assessment. A psychological expert report without a bibliography does not meet the most basic standards of the scientific work. in its entirety, it must be assessed as not scientifically sound and not comprehensible. In the opinion of the undersigned, such a document cannot be a reliable basis for a court or authority to make a decision. So 3.2, one-sided assessment of attachment dynamics, attachment tolerance and attachment care. The expert uses the concepts of attachment tolerance and attachment care, but applies them in a one-sided and unbalanced manner. Unbalanced application of attachment tolerance. The expert opinions attests that the mother has a massive attachment intolerance. Attachment tolerance refers to the ability of a parent to value and promote the child's relationships with the other parent. While the mother's behavior, refusal of contact, should be critically examined from this perspective, the expert completely fails to analyze the father's attachment tolerance. His own conflict aggravating behavior, such as blocking the mother's car or repeatedly confronting her in court, is not examined in terms of whether it respects and protects the children's attachments to the mother. Ignoring the concept of attachment care on the father's side. The expert correctly states that the attachment care goes beyond mere toleration and means the active promotion of the other parent-child relationship. However, she only examines the aspect as a deficiency on the mother's part. There is no discussion of whether the father, for his part, acts in an attachment-caring manner. For example, actively supports the mother in her role as the children's main caregiver, or whether his actions, for example, passing on audio recordings of the children, further fuel the parental conflict and burden the children. The analysis of the attachment dynamics is therefore incomplete and only serves to underpin the mother's deficits instead of developing a systemic view of the mutual contribution of both parents to the conflict.
Yes, mutual, you got it correct. Continue.
The psychological report uses the scientifically outdated approach of parental alienation syndrome, PAS, which has been criticized by experts. In doing so, the expert failed to take into account the current state of scientific knowledge and to examine the mother's behavior under the aspect of protective gatekeeping. This concept describes behavior that restricts a person's access to the child in order to protect it from harm. The reports of endangerment submitted by the child's mother, according to which the child's father is said to have transported the underage children in a car under the influence of alcohol, were not adequately investigated. However, such review would have been necessary as a parent's refusal to cooperate for reasons related to the child's welfare, such as problematic care behavior or violence, should not be interpreted as a deficit. Objective diagnostic methods, such as a visual urine test to determine the ETG, ETA markers, or a blood test, CTT test, could have been used to clarify potential chronic alcohol abuse. However, the expert failed to carry out these necessary clarifications. So what I have to add here, because on the last day of the last appointment on the 21st of May, I got a CTT blood alcohol test from the ex. 1 year after, it was dated 1 year ago. But the thing is, I've never heard about it until the 21st of May, so I don't know when it was done. So the date was 1 year ago. But furthermore, you know, it was a test made by him. I think weeks afterwards. That means, normally, if something like this is reported, they would say immediately you have to do a test now, which has a more truthful result. But instead, he chose the date, meaning if he would stop, to drink, for 2 weeks or something, it would change the outcome of the results. So you cannot use that as a proof anymore.
Exactly. And this is common with drug testing and what have you. Yes. And also with alcohol, but also with this testing, as you're saying, yeah, one just cleans up theirself prior to the testing, if you will, and perhaps only a week or something, no alcohol, and then get the test done. And after that's done, you drink again. So there really is no validation to enter that testing in there, as we're saying. But, however, when we look at it a little bit deeper, what you were touching on, what was the reason for this alcohol test? You were not informed, but what it looks like is that behind the scenes, there was some collusion and collaboration to try to get evidence to enter into the case as well. So this is again pre-orchestrated to get supportive evidence, perhaps for the X. And there also it also indicates that there was some collusion, perhaps between the court and the X as well to get it. Uh, for whatever reasons, without going further in that. But yeah, it's suspicious too, the entry of it.
Yes, 21st of May I received it. So it's very suspicious from my opinion. So 3.3 pathologization of the mother's lifestyle and beliefs. In the opinion of the undersigned, the expert makes the mistake of drawing a direct conclusion from the mother's unconventional lifestyle and beliefs that the child's welfare is at risk without proving the necessary causal links. The leap from unconventional to dangerous. The mother's esoteric beliefs and vegan diet are presented as key risk factors. However, the decisive step of proving actual, observable harm to the children is missing. The allegation of Akua's failure to drive refers to an incident in 2021. This contrasts with the current kindergarten report from 2025, which attests to the boy's excellent development without any abnormalities. The expert fails to integrate and evaluate this contradictory information. Instead, a past problem is used as evidence of an acute present danger. Unfounded alarmism. Properly, the most serious interpretative error is the hypothesis of a potential extended suicide. This assumption is merely derived from children's stories about a different word, other word. Such a serious warning requires a well-founded basis. For example, through a validated risk assessment for suicidality, which is completely lacking here. Such a speculative and decontextualized dramatization is scientifically dubious, highly suggestive, and far exceeds the limits of responsible expert work. So, yes, so that's the whole evaluation. And again, it's reflecting the whole court procedure and everyone involved with treating evidence and information, the whole court procedure.
Yeah, yeah, just absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely. So, I mean, this is again, this is a independent objective evaluation that just went through, and as let's say any common person can see how ridiculous it is, and for any professional psychologist or anyone at law could identify how absolutely violating, unlawful, and criminal that it actually is. It's that conspicuous. I believe, as the evaluator said, like there is no excuse for this. And again, it's that absurd that it's showing it's intentional. And then you look at again for what reasons. We could say money, but let's say, why would someone jeopardize their professionalism for some money? Is the money that great? Are the children worth that much? Yes, the children are worth a lot now because of the liens. What they had as a result, they substantiated being created. But not only these, your children, Akua and Aurora, everyone worldwide has at least this value of a €500 billion, but really it's unlimited value that everyone has. So
I want to add something with the past alienation syndrome, but also what I'm observing
mhm.
in other cases. So the thing is, they use this, for example, very often with mothers who are reporting abusive behavior or sexual abuse, by the other parent. So what this creates then afterwards is to block the mother from continuing asking the child what is happening, but also not looking at the changes in the behavior, meaning like, telling her that she's not, that she's alienating the child and she has to motivate the child to go to the father. But also furthermore, um, there's a very interesting article. There's a lot of people who are supporting the father lobbyist. Not only men, there are also a lot of women doing it, meaning like a feminine evaluator. So they are meeting with each other on those specific meetings as well, right? So I'm just adding this, but also I have to add this, that I have submitted that last time in court as well. But also I have a statistic of 2024 in Germany showing institutional violence, the same case as with mine, in statistics, in real numbers as well. So I'm just saying, the thing that Bundy Lee brought up, in the family court system in US is clearly also in Italy, in the whole European area, and, also proven with facts based on data and statistics. So I just wanted to add this right now, just to show that is not only something, yeah, some kind of.
Absolutely. And with that, it's showing it's a worldwide uh, network, and it's a business model with the same tactics utilized from country to country to get the children again. And it's not only is it a business model, it is something much more sinister. And with just some casual research, if you will, it's looking like with the children that survive these traumatic experiences at the hands of the child services worldwide, it's about 82% that becomes delinquents. But getting back later in life because of the traumatic stress, and we need to say this, if child protective services were actually doing very good, shouldn't you have a very good success rate with perhaps little or none delinquents? but where you got 82%, this also is a indicate indicative statistic that something is very, very, very wrong. Going back to the children with we've also seen it recently with the father, if you will, that because the children are currently in his custody, unlawful custody, I will say, uh, if you speak to them, the conversation will be by phone, but it'll be monitored by him. And if you say anything bad about him, the conversation will be cut off. But let's go back to what was mentioned by the evaluator in the report, which come up in court, I believe, or it is mentioned. Both children did not want to go with the father. So there was a reason for that that was never explored. But when we look at the children being forced to go with the father without the court knowing the reason, and where the mom was protecting the children, if something happens, which could be staged with the children while they're with the father, it was also designed and meant to break the trust between the children and the mother as well. And of course,
Yes.
this is, in my opinion, and how much speculation is it? When we consider all of the facts and the evidences, I believe it paints the picture on how more clear, once again, that this is not only to break the connection between Ya and the children, but to also break that trust. And this is a tactic also that has been used, if you will, prevalently worldwide in child exploitation, experimentation, and psychological programming, brainwashing, conditioning. All of these things apply. It is to break the trust. And I'll quickly just say the residential schools in Canada with the native children. One of the big things there was to separate the children from the parents and also break their trust in their beliefs. For example, a strong belief was to have long hair. Uh, with many of the indigenous, or at least some of the indigenous peoples in Canada, their hair was a very important part of their culture and their heritage. But one of the things that the schools would do is begin to cut off their hair to weaken their spirit and to weaken their trust as well. So very, I would say, satanic, because that's what it is, and cultish, and with very sinister actions. But to break that trust as well, when we go back to it between Nya and the children trust Nya, but again, as part of the psychological brainwashing by the child services, is also attempting to break that trust, but also intervening, not allowing Nya the duty of care by a mother to protect the child by informing the child with information. So it's being blocked and prevented. And again, there is a reason that the children did not want to go with the father, and they had entrusted the mother that they wanted to stay with the mother, Nya, and Nya has also got a contract from both children that even while they were in captivity, in the child crisis center, they sign this and still want to be with the mother. And this is part of the lean evidence and further what has been distributed. And again, it's what do you
Yeah,
wish to add there, sister?
yeah. I just want to add. I also have many recordings from the children saying they don't want. They want to come back home. So this was also tempered and hidden, in a clinical psychological test from the children. And also, this is a common pattern through all mothers. So meaning like that they get used to a setting where the rights are not heard, where the voices are not heard, where and also abusive behavior. So that is what I'm seeing here. So, and also the trauma bonding, meaning like, from the beginning, they took away the children. They never intended to give me the children back, as you can see. So what they did was from the beginning try to separate me from the children as much as possible. So they stalled or delayed visiting times with the children. So since then, I only have seen them 2 times for 1 hour. And also, to give them the opportunity to leave with the ex, right? Because they were in a prison, right? So the only option out is the father, so it creates some kind of savior or, a Stockholm syndrome. I have to say that, the only way out. But all the
Yeah,
time, yeah,
to
yes,
choose the lesser, if you will, of two evils. Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
exactly.
and
But
that's
also,
perfectly normal for any child and even any adult at times to do. They look at their choices and their options and what is the most favorable for them. Also, what will occur in the future is some questioning of the children as well, where we will get more insight onto what exactly occurred in the child crisis center, because there are some suspicious things that did occur in there with the children. One that supposedly a Kua hit his head, and number two, a bruise had appeared on Aurora where she didn't know it come from, and there were some other suspicious things with, let's say, without going into detail here, there were some other documented suspicious things that occurred while the children were there as well. Um, I'd like to take a minute, unless you have something to add now, and I got the glasses on because too much time on the computer and the phones, my
yes,
eyes are a bit
thanks.
blurry. But I got a pair of specs, it's a hey, can you see me? I look like Santa Claus if my beard was white, maybe, but uh, do you have anything to add right at this moment? If not, I'm going to go into the main four principles
Or
of law.
or maybe just a little thing because I didn't finish or what I wanted to share is
Yeah.
that this is a common pattern throughout, the moment they take because I have spoken with many mothers, right? So they create such things, like that the mother is crazy, so they can't see the child. Then also, the monitoring while speaking and phoning with the child, so that happens overall, and also don't allow them to ask the children things, and also don't to talk about the father. Why? Because the father has created that whole situation, right? So they don't want the children to know the truth, what happened, right? So they would again mistrust the mother. So I'm just adding this again because that's a common pattern throughout.
Yeah, that intentional misappropriation of trust, another example of it. Um, you know, we also need to mention the complicity of the lawyers in all of this. And for the simple reason, any lawyers again, there is no excuse by them to know what is unlawful and what is illegal. Um, they are also to be experts in law to whatever degree, meaning again, there is no excuse by them not to recognize unlawful things, but also a lawyer, the same as any citizen, has a moral obligation that when they witness laws being broken, that they must say it as well. They may choose not to say it, but if it's found out in the future that they were part of it, then they become incriminated when more of this evidence comes out. And what I need to say and what I'm leading to, there are several lawyers that are also complicit in this case. Um, and again, ignorance of law is not an excuse. Ignorance of the violation of rights is not an excuse by a lawyer. Again, with law, there has to be accountability and there cannot be any impunity, but also by a law professional, there cannot be the blind eye, the ignorance as well, because then it begins to incriminate them. So, just another aspect, not only in this case, but also during some of our interviews and some of our, let's say, correspondence and conversation with other victims in Austria and Germany, uh, they are seeing where the lawyers are part of this and are complicit as well. And there's even circumstances documented when one's own lawyer works against them, uh, which is showing again that the lawyer is actually working unlawfully. So, having said this, for any of you lawyers that are watching this, it's very important to do the right things and to be very meticulous from this time forward in any of your representation in any court worldwide. Um, Sister Nya stepped out, so I'm going to share the screen on the principles of law, the rule of law, if you will. So there we go. Hopefully, you can see the screen being shared. But what we're looking at here is I chose this website. This is the World Justice Project, but I just quickly chose it for a reason it come up quickly. And what it says here is the rule of law is the foundation for healthy communities of justice, opportunity, and peace. So the rule of law is a durable system of laws, institutions, norms, and community commitment that delivers four universal principles. Now, these four principles of law is one is accountability. And what it says here, it says under accountability, the government as well as private actors are accountable under the law. So this means it cannot be any impunity, which typically means in this case and others, ones that we are naming, there has to be justice served, or justice will be served upon them. If not, if you don't have this, then this is not law in Austria, but right at this point, we obviously know there isn't. So another universal principle of law is open government. and this says the processes by which the law is adopted, administered, adjudicated, and enforced are accessible, fair, and efficient. Well, in this case, what we are seeing, no, it was not accessible. No, it is not fair. And no, it is not efficient, as you saw. And the evaluator used the word several times, deficient, deficiency. And also, it's not enforced, it's not adjudicated lawfully. And it is also the written laws were not administered. So the government of Austria as a whole failed miserably in this part of the test with, one of the fundamental principles of law. When we go over here, the just law is another one of the four universal principles. And what that means, that the law is clear, that it's publicized and stable and is applied evenly. It ensures human rights as well as property, contract, and procedural rights. In this case, simply Nya's constitutional rights, legal rights, but also human rights were all violated and denied to some degree. So that means there is no just law in Austria. And when we look at the next one, accessible and impartial justice. Justice is delivered timely by competent. We've seen total incompetency. It's to justice is to be delivered by ethical. We've seen violations of the ethical code of conduct within the psychological evaluator, the judge, but it's been prevalent throughout the justice system because they were all informed of these proceedings. So I'll just go back and read that again. Justice to be a accessible and impartial justice system, to be lawful system, justice is supposed to be delivered timely by competent, ethical, and independent representatives and neutrals who are accessible, have adequate resources, and reflect the makeup of the communities that they serve. And again, no, it doesn't, we have not seen that. So I just wanted to simply, touch on this, where we are not seeing that, and I could go much further into it. So the rule of law, if you will, has been just totally obstructed, violated, and ignored, as well as the people. Yeah, I wrote here, and I'll be putting some more information out, but it is the moral obligation of the citizens of Austria, as well as the people of the world, for that matter, to endorse and uphold the liens. This is very important what I'm saying here with it, without going further into it. We've been on here quite a while. But you will see more of this come up where the citizens of Austria will see the moral obligation to endorse and uphold these lawful liens that were presented. The $1 trillion lien on the Republic of Austria to set up an immediate trust fund for the victims, mostly the mothers and the children, if you will, that have unlawfully had their children taken. So this needs to be set up right away. And what I will say, the ITJ, IC, what's the acronym? The World Court has been notified, if you will, of the placement of these liens as well. And with the World Court, this is connected to international law. However, with the World Court, it really does not stand into the authority that Nya presently does itself, because there is also a conflict of interest with the International Court, because its judges are paid by the contributing states to it. And Austria is also one of those. So when you have an incriminating state, then you have uh, again a unlawful relationship that also invalidates the ability to a certain degree for a world court to act. However, with this, you have universal jurisdiction and individual jurisdiction that is activated in times of tyranny with any country. Uh, but also with this at this time, with divine-gpms.world, we are a universal nation with laws and also a monetary um, structure as well. And this constitutes a universal nation. And at present, we have around 344,000, just over, that have consented and agreed with this, with the universal nation of divine-gpms.world, which will be in the near future your everyone's new set of laws. It is the replacement system that we are bringing in. However, it needs to be ratified. But having said this, and this is your lawful stature, what divine GPMS is with its divine law, and this will be better outlined on the website as we go forward to make it simple and easy for everyone. And let's say all genuine existing ones of law and justice will readily and quickly identify with its complete lawful jurisdiction because of what it does. It upholds the principles of law. Also, law would not exist with humanity if it was not for the laws of Mr. Mrs. Mosey or Mr. Mosey here visiting. But it would not exist without the rights of the individual. So in reality, all law is supposed to be principalized by the human rights, the what we call your inherent rights, your unalienable rights, which is the basis and the principles for all law. And this is what also GPMS, Divine GPMS, is based on. So having said that, it is the utmost lawful authority, even though not recognized by the majority on earth yet. It will be in the near future for the simple reason it cannot be contested nor opposed for its full, absolute, lawful stature, and it will be. Um, and I want to read this quick one. Please bear with me, Sister Nya. We've been a while, and everyone else. The legal system of Austria exists because the people support it through belief and mostly abide by it. However, the legal system is criminal. And when the people allow for injustices to continue, the people also become criminal themselves. They become accomplices to allowing this occurring. It is extensive with the moms and the children that have been affected thus far at the expense of the Austrian justice system. So this is not an isolated thing, not an isolated case with Sister Nya and the children. It is much more extensive, and it's not acceptable in this day and age. And it's not only is it being dealt here now with Austria and with what Sister Nya and other supportive, let's say, structures and organizations. This is also worldwide, and we've mentioned the name Bandy Lee um, in the U.S. with her recent testimony. She had done one in Arizona. There was a beautiful video come out about that, and she had did one perhaps maybe a year or so ago in New York. I'm just not sure on the dates, but her testimony is she's a renowned psychologist, and I believe perhaps I could say renowned somewhat worldwide. Um, what her experience with the family court and the deliberation and the tactics that are used in the business model and the incentivization with the money by the governments. It's being well documented, so it's becoming what you would call perhaps an explosive revelation of what's occurring. And at this point, what I suggest, if any child care services are watching this, and if you are genuine, I suggest to vacate that profession as soon as possible, because there is some serious incriminations that um, are, are beginning already and have already occurred. You are not protected by the justice system, by the judges, by the lawyers, and um, as I've just stated, because we are going into the time of absolute law, and none of this unacceptable behavior is tolerated in the future. So, just to give yourself, let's say, a step back and just look at what you're actually involved in supporting in these supposed child care facilities, which obviously it's being exposed that they're not. Um, so, and so I'll just read a little bit more of the notes. And when the people allow for injustices to continue, the people also, yes, become criminal. Not only criminal, however, also cruel and inhumane to allow for a legal system to exist and cause so much harm and suffering and psychological stress without stepping up and taking action to stop these serious injustices and violation of parents and the innocent children that are involved in this, not only this case, worldwide. So, I got wrote down a test to prove a crime. So you prove the criminal act, the unlawful act. We have proven it here, but this is the test to show that there is a crime to be prosecuted. And in this case, the prosecution ability has actually shifted from the legal system of Austria because it doesn't have any judicial composure. So the prosecution has actually shifted from that Austria legal system to Nya, and the people as being the prosecutors of the actual criminal legal system. of Austria. So we also have a criminal intent. You have to prove that the criminal intent is very conspicuous, it's obvious, it's prevalent, not only through this case, through other cases in Austria, but also worldwide. It's the same pattern. The correlation is exact to show that there is a pattern, that it is intentional, and very quickly you can apply the worldwide pattern that's involved with the business model, the tactics, to this very case. And when you have, let's say, somewhat an exact correlation that creates the pattern in all cases, and you see the agenda, it is criminal intent is lawfully established. And the last is, and when you do that, that's beyond a reason of a doubt. How much evidence does one need to see? And that then proves, the intent, but it also, with the causation, which is a vital part as well of test upon a criminal act. And it's everyone, let's say the moms more so know, but also we're sharing this information, the harm, what we have seen with this. And if you look at evidence from many different cases, it's psychological stress, the results of it, delinquent children, um, suicides by moms and dads that had their children taken, the financial burdening, which creates
or by the
one's
children as well. So there were
and
also
the
suicide from the children or jumping out.
traumatized. Yeah. And what was that?
Also,
Children
suicide by the children,
and
just jumping out of the window because they didn't want to go with them or something, or also in the past cases when the child is given to the abusive parent, or in most cases the father, where the children died after being in their custody.
Thank you. Yes, yes. That's yeah, and that's coming up with more evidence on that as well. So what we're seeing is, there is more than enough evidence, not only in this case to prove the actual intent, but also to prove the harm to, let's say, sufficient degree without going deeper into that, but worldwide, with what it does, the harm is created. And so, having said that, I think, yeah, I think just going through my notes so I can get this finished up. Yeah, and also, yeah, worldwide, no government owns the child, but also, typically it's accepted that really the mom doesn't own the child because no one owns anyone else. But between the mom and the child, what is owned is the accountability and the responsibility of that most vital ingredient, important thing is the duty of care and the relationship between the mom, that more so for the mom, and again, yes, for the fathers, but it's again for the mom. And I like to use an example that the baby and the children, after they're born, they do not suckle on the father. It is the mom, and it's the mom that does this important nurturing. And so there is an important connection with the mom and the child rather than the father. But there is that duty of care in this case, which the government allowed to be compromised in Sister Nya's case. And this has also caused immeasurable harm in the form, at least, of psychological stress, and these are not acceptable actions by anyone. Um, so, yeah, the well-being and the duty of care, as outlined with the children and the children, everything was fulfilled with that. So it's all lies, fabrications, and intent, uh, by what we're seeing here to take the children away. And all criminal and not acceptable. Now, as we go forward, there's going to be more things that will come up, and also it's importantly with any moms and dads that are watching this, and if your case is as incontestable as Sister Nya's, understand your lawful rights and also your ability to begin placing your own liens uh, against these illegal criminal structures that have deprived you of your rights, but they actually did not deprive you of law. What they actually did is enact your lawful authority by committing and condoning the criminal acts. Once again, what has occurred is the people are the absolute law in times of illegal governments or tyranny, and this is what we're seeing. In this present day, it is so savage, so primitive, so ridiculous that these things occurred. Humanity should have been advanced into a civilization, into a civil form of community and working together rather than this trying to attack innocent families and sticking, let's say, their noses into everyone's business and taking it further than that with intent to cause harm that also leads, if it's not part of it, that leads to physical harm and, as Sister Nya mentioned, deaths as well. This is not acceptable, and it stops here. And all of you moms and dads, begin sending invoices for your time. Um, what you have incurred because you could not get any proper representation by lawyers because the lawyers were also uh, controlled to whatever degrees by the system. For the most part, there are, let's say, two sets of laws, and the reality is that the lawyers, it depends on which lawyers it is, but let's say the higher lawyers, they know what sets of laws are there and what they can utilize in the courts. And there are, let me say, many cases sometimes are predetermined um, with a playing out lawful battle between lawyers that is actually designed to financially burden ones as well. The real truth and the real tactics of how criminal things are would shock everyone. Not everyone, not now, because so much has come out and more consistently and constantly coming out that there is no hiding for this criminality, and we are in the great time where humanity, despite what you see in this world right now, humanity is going into civility, and part of doing what is lawfully correct is part of this important transitioning and also taking the people's power back to do what is right and no longer accept all of these ridiculous things. And also to not accept a capitalistic system that is designed to create poverty, impoverished situations, poverty, extreme poverty. That is sick. It is savage. It's not humane. And again, with divine-gpms.world, this world gives everyone equal abundance, everything you need, all of your freedom, all of your rights upheld, in peace and harmony and community worldwide, the way things should be. So it's important to know the existence of divine-gpms.world. Go there and consent. Every child's consent counts. Also, if a child is 1 minute old, the child's parent, being the guardian, can consent for that child. So everyone's voice is heard and also counted, including a child's vote.
I just want to add, for the Austrian moms to know that we put in a lot of effort, the last couple of months since the beginning. And Rick did an amazing job. And just lately, he wrote such a powerful statement. I was so impressed. It was so powerful, but also those statements, but also what Rick also already have mentioned. But also the liens was submitted by into the court itself, but also requesting them, to release the children, at least for now in Austria. So I just want to inform you that we laid some kind of groundwork already, also for the Austrian mothers to follow. Yes.
Oh, thank you. I just put in on Facebook if there's any questions, just to see. Yeah, so this framework, as Sister Nya said, but also this lawful strategy. So you don't need to fight anymore. You just need to come together and realize this lawful strategy, and very quickly everything should be done. But again, it depends upon the individual. Are you going to make your stand with this? You are not only given what we have give you so far, there's also more education and more substantial uh, instruments and tools that you'll be able to use as well. But not only that, we're also seeing more professionals, if you will, surfacing and stepping forward as well. So with this, your and what we need to say with some organizations that were supposed to be supportive of rights and what have you, those in the past were infiltrated as well to lead you astray and to keep you fighting a system never designed to allow you to win. Do you wish to say something there, Sister? Yeah.
Oh, yes. In the past, we contacted 5 organizations, for example, I think Amnesty International, the European Court of Human Rights, and also others. So I've never got any reply. Also, Soul Sister tried it. She never get any reply. But also, interestingly, at one court or organization, I just received a message that they received it and deleted it without reading. But also, in the past from other mothers that they didn't get any reply. So that is very suspicious as well.
Well, yeah, and please share. One of the reasons, moms, when you're targeted, or dads even, your emails, all of your communication devices are monitored, and your emails are intercepted as well, and blocked. Do you want to share what just occurred, Sister Nya, with the
Oh,
other
yeah.
night?
So what we did on Friday, I submitted, a lot of documents into court, lawful, divinely lawful documents. And what we also did, we informed all health insurances in Austria, the main one, which are which insurance the people, and also all the ministries, and also the involved ones in my case. And that at the point when I wanted to when I sent out the official lien notification, I got blocked by few ones. So I received the report that I was blocked. And when I went deeper into investigation, I just figured out that the Children Crisis Intervention Center, also the school and the kindergarten, is connected to the Ministry of Education and the Ministry for Internal Affairs. So they are sharing the same spam or mailing list, or the blacklist, So that was very, very interesting. So I further realized that it's my suspicion, because my daughter already shared a case with is that they are so strongly connected with other, meaning like the moment you took out your child from school, they send you penalty fees, but in the same time, they start to monitor you, prepare a place for you in a crisis intervention center, and at the same time in school. So they are very strongly connected, but also, the ministry itself. So that is from my investigation right now with the latest one. Yes.
So actually, they become targeted. Yeah, yeah. If
And
one's taken out of, but what we've seen, it was an instantaneous trail of the levels of government, the school, the kindergarten, childcare services. It also showed a network trail, if you will, up to the government, the levels of government and the high levels of government, right up to the chancellor, perhaps, that boom, that whole side got blocked. They blocked your emails instantly. And I believe that's how it occurred. And if not, please correct me. But we identified a chain along the server. Yes,
yes,
what do you wish
so
to say?
the children care services was not involved into this, but furthermore, the education network, I would say, like the Ministry of Internal Affairs, the Ministry of Educational system, and the Crisis Intervention Center, and the schools and kindergarten, which means like,
But the Crisis Intervention Center is connected to the child welfare. So
yes, but the email to the child welfare was not blocked itself. What I want to say is, the Crisis Intervention Center, when you look at the website, it's mainly built up, it's saying if you are overwhelmed or in a stressed situation, or you don't want to go to school, they put you into the Crisis Intervention Center and indoctrinate you back into the system. Meaning like,
yeah,
to observe and monitor those who wants to step out, or are already not in alignment with the system, to monitor them and to indoctrinate or to change them back into the system.
yeah,
So that's what
rob them
they're
of
doing.
their identity.
So children
Yeah,
are also put into this crisis intervention center if they are taken out of school, unless the mother would give in or anything. I don't know. I don't know that completely, but I only know that Aurora shared there was a case where another child came in because she didn't go to school or something. There was a similar situation with her. But she
yeah.
quickly get out of that thing, because I also know from other cases that is a very sensitive area. The moment you put the child out of it, they are very alerted. But I have a beautiful, beautiful case which I want to share with everyone. It just recently popped up. So a father put their children out of school, young children, because I think they were bullied and they didn't were in alignment, or they had some problems with school. I'm not clearly remembering it, but the main thing is he put them out and he allowed them to free learning. So not homeschooling, but free learning. And
Yeah.
he said he was so positive surprised, because the children learned so much, by themselves. They would never learn those things, really higher stuff, by themselves. So then it ended up him having going into court. So I also mentioned the penalty fee, what you're receiving. So when he went into court, he shared all those things with the judge. And the newspaper article wrote, oh, the judge was not impressed by all the things the father said. And, for the father, it doesn't matter if he has to pay the penalty fee or not. And in the end, they didn't say how the outcome was, but in the end, the father looked at the judge and said, "This is not the last time that you see me," showing that he's continuing with free learning because it's the better solution for the child. In the best interest of the children, which is so powerful and empowering, because he's doing the right thing, because he saw the positive results out of it. So that is something that I wanted to share, and I really love that.
Absolutely. And that is so important as well. See, what actually occurred with the dad and his children, by letting them align with their own interests, it unlocked their own creativity, innovation, and ingenuity to advance very quickly forward. But we also see this indicated with you and Aurora and Akua, where these where your two children are advanced as well, which is mentioned by the evaluation and the teachers in school as well. But this is also due in part with your education and your duty of care as a mother, at not conforming and restricting them to a curriculum school based. They are learning very quickly because you allow them the freedom to learn. And this is what is coming now. It's now and coming in this future that all children will be able to decide what they wish to learn, which is in alignment with their interests, which unlocks their ingenuity. Many of these children today are geniuses, but they're held back and conformed by public school systems, child care services, robbing the children of their identity and their ingenuity and conforming them to be a robot to a capitalistic society where they do the mundane things. Go to bed, get up, go to work 9 to 5, come home, eat, go to bed per week. Perhaps get the weekend off for 2 days to explore a little bit of life, then back to work the next week, to conform them into a monotonous looping uh, program of insanity.
I,
And
I want to
yeah,
add
yeah,
Aurora's comment to this. She said, it's very interesting. She said she don't like the school because the balance between free time and school time is not in her, is not what she likes. It's too much, you know. So that shows her highly intelligence also, but
well,
also,
well, yeah,
yes,
absolutely. Let's take a school day that they're conformed to learn something they're not in alignment with. Let's take a 6 hour school day, and then let's take a half an hour of their free time to do what they wish to learn. In that half hour, they learn more what they would learn in the 6 hours because they are aligned with their ingenuity. And it's very beautiful that Aurora recognizes this along with so many other children. And, the system tries to say, oh, the children got ADD, ADHD. We got to give them drugs and medicines that there's something wrong with them. They don't want to learn. Well, the actual truth is, who would want to learn something that's not going to exist in the future and that's not in alignment with their interests? To force someone to learn is indoctrination and it's psychological conditioning, which is also against the will of the individual and against their rights as well. And this is something that is not acceptable now. And as we swiftly go into the future, you're not going to have public schools to learn a curriculum to conform you to a capitalistic, cruel, sick, and inhumane psychopathic world that creates classes of people that leads to untimely death, suffering, great inflictions of harm. It leads to crime. So the new system that we have. Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to add also another beautiful story from a child,
Yes,
which I
please.
know it's he's very intelligent. I talked to his mother and I said, clearly your son is highly intelligent. That's the reason why he's not fitting in, right? And there was a day in school where they had to show which kind of job they want to have, when they are grown up. And interestingly, a lot of children brought in something like, YouTuber or influencer or something. And he came in and he said he wants to be a self-supporter or a self-catering. Like he wants to, live on a farm and plant his vegetable and everything. And he also said, if I do that, I don't need grammar, like this. It's beautiful. But then what happened again, because the teacher is often calling his mother, and she called her, and she said, yeah, that's not a good example. He cannot do something like that, but also saying, he don't needs grammar afterwards. I mean, his mother said, there's nothing wrong. And also when the child came home, she said to him, both parents said to him, we are so proud of you. Just showing an example, the child just wanted to be self catering or supporter, and the teacher jumped in because it's not in conform, it's not in alignment with what the school system is educating and the society. So I'm just sharing that bit because just to see where's the limit, or where's the thing, when they are start to step in and to conform you. But also another mother brought something very interesting insight, which I never recognized. She mentioned, in school the children are often instructed to write down things what they have experienced at home or on holidays and everything. But when you look at it from a different point of view, it's also some kind of monitoring. You know, how is your home? What are you doing at home?
Absolutely.
How are you raised? And if something doesn't match their belief system, they start to intervene, right?
Yes.
So I'm just sharing that because there's always that kind of monitoring, which also occurred, with Aurora and Akua through the teacher and through the kindergarten, talking all the time with the child welfare and reporting every little thing. So that's a completely violation of human rights, privacy, and family life, for example, but more other things as well. So I'm just sharing it to open up for others, a different perspective on it.
Absolutely. They look for a reason intentionally and they look for anything negative. But in your case, they really couldn't find anything, so they ended up fabricating, making lies and manipulating everything that you said. And again, you had 10 character witnesses that knew you were a good mom and know that you are a good mom. And it's absolutely preposterous, and it is, as I said in the beginning, what I'm witnessing with the legal system, and it is even worse than what you would call a kangaroo court, if you will. But how many times do I need to say this? Yeah, we've seen more than enough, but constantly, I do put that emphasis on how ridiculous, preposterous, unacceptable, and how criminal and how savage these things are, and unacceptable.
Yes, I also had recently to hear that my children are such poor children to have such a mom, because I'm not the normal mother and cannot have a reasonable discussion with someone. So I'm just putting that up because I had recently a chat with the child welfare leader, where I
Yeah,
found
well,
things.
it set off a huge defamation against you. So, it's looking like perhaps the school teachers might have been intimidated because they flipped a little bit, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, in their stories as well. They were more supportive, I think, and they were flipping back and forth. But in your community, you are recognizing that you're being shunned somewhat by ones that you had known. I believe you had shared, uh, like
Yes,
when you go out in public. So, again, it's part of the tactics to discredit and defame you, to control you. And it's a very sinister, deep tactics to do this. So to use everyone to discredit and to defame you in your community as well.
yes,
But one thing that uh, this criminal network in Austria, one mistake they made is that they underestimated you, and that they didn't realize that God and angels are very real, and that changed
yeah.
and changes everything.
Yes, they are. And, I met a lot of powerful mothers and children, and they are all protected. Just the thunder coming in, confirming that
Confirmation, yeah.
they are miraculously protected and saved by angels or by Father. So I'm just saying this, because it's really, really real. And everyone who goes through the darkest night knows that, because everyone finds their trust into the higher divinity, in Father or Mother, whatever they believe, or source, but in the divinity. Yes, totally.
And this is very real. All of us that know it and have experienced it, and uh, for anyone that hasn't experienced the power of God, if you will, if you haven't already, you'll experience it more and more, and shortly as well as you
God is
proceed.
good. But
So
yeah,
we confirm it fully. Yes, yes, it's
yes,
very
but
real, very true.
yes, but I have to add, a lot of people I know, different kind of conscious levels, different kind of belief system. Everyone feels it. Not all of them believes in angel or something, but everyone I met, they said we are very close. The system is crushing and something new is arising. Or someone said we are very close. Something will happening. And also others starting to look into the Bible, look into the book of Revelation, because we are in the end times. All those signs, flooding, fire everywhere, snow in area where it's normally tropical, something coming down, fireballs, electrical balls, and what have you, or that recent flooding, I think in Texas, where the water rises so quickly. Was it Texas? Yes, such kind of things.
In
But
China, and
yes, but
yeah,
I also
other
saw
areas,
one very great
Australia.
thing I have to share. I think there was also somewhere in America and a thunder came in, or no, a tsunami, like a hurricane came in, and the whole family started to pray for protection. And then beautifully, it's very interesting. The whole house was protected through the whole hurricane. And later, when they watched the video, the recording, of the house in front of it, they saw a being in front of the house and protecting the house. I mean, it's an old story, but it's a very, from my opinion, it's a very real. I'm getting also a lot of goosebump, because if a lot of people come together and have such a deep trust, it moves mountains, literally. And Father hears everything, Mother.
Absolutely. It's very real, and anyone watching, keep your faith and trust in God. And it's important to speak out loud if you need a little bit of assistance. As Sister Nya says, the way that God really works is God is a very brilliant, uh, conscious intelligence in the least, and all hearing and all seeing, and the way that God really works is all encompassing. Anyone that believes, you get that connection and that channel to the big guy, if you will, and the big girl, to call them on the phone. Yeah. Hey, mom, hey, dad. And it's very, very real. But again, if someone doesn't believe and hasn't had the experience, yeah, how would they know? It's both of us could attest. When I was just human, I did not even know that God existed, if you will, but I was disguised from myself. And but where God exists, what I need to say to everyone, evil also exists in this world. And this is why you are seeing these laws and justice systems broken with great intent and desperation. Because, as you know, these ones are actually wicked, are evil, and that they have no compassion. And I like to say they don't have a soul, or they would not be creating great harm between moms and their children. And if they have families themselves, if the psychological evaluator or if the judge has families, in this case, and any of the child care services workers, it's evident that they are not good moms for what they're doing, supporting this great harm as well.
I just want to add two things. The one thing is, I just want to add again, it's happening worldwide. So, worldwide, people are standing up, showing the criminal intention in the family court worldwide. Really, it's just a little bit, suppressed by the media. But in America, in all other countries, everyone is stepping up. So just to mention this, and also because you mentioned, for ones that didn't have experienced it, it's very difficult to trust or believe. I just want to put an example into it that a Korean guy, the highest intelligent one on the world with the highest IQ, stated that Jesus is God, and it's real, just with scientifically proving it, right? So I'm just saying it, when the highest intelligent person on the world is saying this, it's also without seeing it. That's also a confirmation. So yes,
Yeah,
I added.
there's so many. Yeah, that can confirm it. So, over and still, I'd like to say it's increasing in Iran, for example. So many Persians that were Muslim, but with the Islamic faith, but that is also any faith that believes in God and connected to that, and doing what is right, are also connected to God. But with that, what was interesting is that many of Islamic faith began not so long ago to be visited by the angelic Jesus Christ, if you will. And very quickly, as a result of that, and because there were many, and I believe the numbers are still growing, they quickly changed their faith to Christianity, even though Islamic faith has Jesus included in there, as well as with Muhammad and the higher Sunni, if you will, attribute of the Islamic faith also has a Mahdi figure, that in this great time that the Mahdi would represent the Islamic faith and stand shoulder to shoulder with Jesus, if you will, or the representation of Jesus. So within all belief systems worldwide, this time has been ordained, as well as all of the signs you famously mentioned, that are mentioned in Revelations, also in prophecy. Also, if we go to the Satya Yuga, and if we go to the Hindi faith as well, it is provisioned in there with Krishna and this great time, and with all of this. Star people with the Hopi, how the events that were prophesized and how they have occurred. It's at a point now with all of the material, physical signs that anyone refuting it is really, there's not much of an excuse, that if they are refuting what is occurring, it's most likely that they are a soulless minion to know this. I see in Romania here, which I love, is many are recognizing the signs more and more every day. And what was interesting is also with Revelations, if you will, in the Bible, there is the mention of the locusts and the plagues, but it's symbolic of God's wrath, if you will. But I bring this up because I just saw today that in one part of Romania, a locust infestation um, came to eat part of a crop. But it's not about the inflicting the direct harm. It is the symbolism why it come up, and I needed to see this at this time, and this is a very good sign that continues for 5 months, which is also another part of the separation, if you will, of the evil and the light. The evil cannot go forward, and the light does, just to keep it simple. But
I
also,
just
in the blink of an eye, at any time, it can change. Good for the better, always. Go ahead.
I just see a question popping up from Elena. Did you notice that most of these Jugendamt people, so child welfare service people, are young and have no children? Oh, I want to add my observation with it. In my case, the child welfare woman has children, or at least one child, because I had discussion with her in the past, and telling her that my children often coming back sick or tired, or with suppressed emotional, a lot of anger, or don't want to go with the father, and she's saying, but the thing is, she mentioned that she's still motivating her child, meaning like not taking care about what her child wants. So the child welfare leader also have a son. I saw him with his child. But I have heard, from another. I just recently connected with another mother in a different area. She mentioned that she came through different kind of child welfare. One was supportive and one not. But the one which was not supportive, that was a young woman, which for some reason had no child, but also were somehow not affected, but attracted to her ex. And because of this, she was siding with the ex. So that is some point of it. And I also know another story where someone mentioned that, the ex of this person had connection with the mayor of the village. And they were some kind of in a family and they supported each other. So they influenced the child welfare to separate that parent from the child for several years now. So they are more older. I don't know how it is in Germany, but honestly, I only know more old ones, or not old ones, but older ones with children. So just to add this.
I have really no comment on this because I haven't had firsthand experience with any of the child care workers, if you will. So I could not comment on their age. What I will say, I've seen enough with this case and other things online with the evidence that, yeah, for I, it doesn't matter. But one thing that did come across is that if some of them have children, are they really their children, or are they just children that might have been abducted and just given to them, during the course of child care services? But that is one thing I saw in Romania. I forget the amount of babies that were left abandoned here, but I see Romania. I haven't looked into it, but I see where, let's say, one aspect of the child care services in Romania is constantly trying to find home for these babies that are apparently left at hospitals and what have you. But it used to be a big thing here back, years in communism as well, because to increase the Romanian population, the more children they would have, the more money they would get by the government. So it was more so a population program, and there were many children that were born that large families and also with limited resources. But nevertheless, I won't go deep into that. But what I'm seeing is if this is, I didn't validate it fully. However, with what I've seen, it looked like there was a lot of babies being yet abandoned here in Romania, but the efforts by the child care services was, to my knowledge, just saying, hey, any family wants to come and give this child a home, if you will. And this is a good way to do it. And my experience and observations in Romania is that the people here are in their heart. Uh, 98% believe in God, which means they are good people, loving and caring. And if they're able to take a child in, I know that the child would be in the safest environment ever, with that. So it is, beautiful, these sort of things that a child care services should be doing, instead of separating the families and causing the intentional stress, they should work on the unity and the proper placement of a distressed child to a family when needed, not the opposite, causing insurmountable stress upon innocent children and the mothers. But again, it's intentional for sinister reasons. Oh, I mentioned locust. I mentioned locust, Sister Nya, and one has appeared here. It's not a cricket, it's a locust. I had a cricket up
Wow.
there, but
One
it's
of the
an
plagues in the Bible.
yeah, what I mentioned about in Romania just a little bit ago about the locusts as one of the signs. Yeah. So yeah, we're getting lots of company here tonight. Good signs. But we've been long. Let's,
Yes.
if there are no other questions, let's wrap this one up. And what I do say is we will be doing um, more. We have updates on things and more things we did not discuss as well. The lean, perhaps
Next time.
next time. All right. I could have just read over it quickly to have that done, but we'll do another one very soon and we'll go over
Yes.
more of the lean. It's posted on my Facebook wall. It's on posted on Ya's Facebook wall and also in Free the Children group on Facebook. And also there are um, information and also let's say document instruments and things that ones can utilize in their victory process of getting their children back. However, what I will say is keep persistent with it. Use the higher techniques and the higher divine lawful tactics. But having said this too, at the rate that everything is coming to light and how the criminal activity is being exposed and the things imploding, I do not feel that it'll be much longer that all children worldwide will be released that were taken unlawfully against their will and, of course, the parents' will. But again, how quick that happens depends upon the input by everyone and your choices and your willingness and your courageous ability to stand and be proactive and say, enough is enough. What do we got to do? Well, first thing we got to do is unite as many and begin to use the lawful instruments to eradicate this illegal criminal network
Yes.
worldwide.
Yes. And so it is.
And so it is. All right. So with that, yeah, no other questions right there. We're going to say love, light, and gratitude, everyone. And we're
Gratitude.
almost there. And I'm going to stop the Facebook Live.